Get a life. Get a life. Have you ever had someone say that to you? Get a life. Well, I want you to get a life, and I want it to be a good one. And so that's what we're going to be talking on today's episode, talking about faith, purpose, and leadership. Brought to you by the Cornerstone Coffee Break. Speaking of Cornerstone Coffee Break, this started out as a newsletter that I would send out weekly with PDF resources dedicated to the topics of faith, purpose, and leadership. So, if you like this episode, one of the ways that you can support me is by subscribing to this newsletter where you will get these resources tied to the podcast. So, for instance, today's episode is going to be on getting a life and making it a good one. And everything that I talk about in this episode is going to be in a PDF that has reflection questions, spaces for you to write things down, and also you could even use this for a devotional or a message that maybe you're teaching to your staff or a team or someone in your church, a group in your church. All right, so let's get into it. How do you know if you've lived a good life? If you're blessed to make it to 80 or 90 years, maybe even 100 years on this earth, and someone asks you the question toward the end of your life, did you have a good life? How are you going to answer? Do you think that you'll say yes, determined on your current trajectory right now? And if you do say yes at the end of your life, yes, I've had a good life. Well, how are you going to answer the follow-up question, which would be something like, well, what made it so good? So if you asked anyone that question, do you want to have a good life? Most normal people would respond by saying something like, yes, of course, I want to have a great life. I want to have a good life. But the most important question you need to answer is, well, what makes a life good? For today's episode, we're going to be looking at Psalm chapter 90. Most of the Psalms were written by King David or this other guy named Asaph. But what's really cool is Psalm 90 was actually written by Moses. And we're going to look at some of his words today in Psalm 90. He has this very popular verse in this chapter, Psalm 90, verse 12, which says, teach us to number our days that we may gain a heart of wisdom. The Message version, paraphrase of the Bible, says it this way: oh, teach us to live well. Teach us to live wisely and well. So, what I'd like to do to start off this episode is to read Psalm chapter 90. And we're going to talk about it a little bit and just mine this passage for little gems and for wisdom of how we can live a good life. So, let's get into it and really pay attention to some of the language that Moses is using in the first half of Psalm 90. I'm going to read Psalm 90, verses 1 through 11. Psalm 90, a prayer of Moses, a man of God. Lord, you have been our dwelling place throughout all generations. Before the mountains were born, or you brought forth the whole world, from everlasting to everlasting, you are God. You turn people back to dust, saying, return to dust, you mortals. 1,000 years in your sight are like a day that has just gone by, or like a watch in the night. Yet you sweep people away in the sleep of death. They are like the new grass of the morning. In the morning it springs up new, but by evening it is dry and withered. We are consumed by your anger and terrified by your indignation. You have set our iniquities before you, our secret sins in the light of your presence. All our days pass away under your wrath. We finish our years with a moan. Moo. Our, da- our days may come to 70 years, or 80 if our strength endures. Yet the best of them are but trouble and sorrow, for they quickly pass and we fly away. If only we knew the power of your anger. Your wrath is as great as the fear that is your due. Those are not warm, fuzzy words. Those are cold, prickly words. Did you guys catch on the cynical, glass half empty kind of language that Moses is using in this passage. He's lamenting about the brevity of life, as well as God's anger towards sin. He's basically saying life is here 1 minute and then gone the next. And by the way, our days are filled with trouble and sorrow. God's wrath and God's judgment are real. So you get this feel that Moses is almost ready to say, what's the point? Life is short, is filled with trouble and sorrow. God's judgment is coming for sin. All of us are sinners. We have secret sins. It's going to be brought out into his presence for everyone to see. And then you die. Ouch. This is how some people move through life. And that one phrase, they finish their years with a moan. Oh, life is so hard and full of trouble and But then we get to verse 12, which acts sort of like a hinge for a doorway in this psalm. So we're going to see verse 12 kind of swing the door open and move us into a different perspective of living life. Verse 12 says this. Teach us to number our days that we may gain a heart of wisdom. Moses asks for wisdom in living our days with intentionality and purpose. And verse 12 acts as a catalyst for changing your perspective. And then you'll see that it actually changes the language that Moses uses. And now, if you read the rest of the psalm, you'll notice that Moses is speaking with those more warm, fuzzy words, the words of love and joy and purpose. All right, so I'm going to read verses 13 through 17 here. Relent, Lord. How long will it be? Have compassion on your servants. Satisfy us in the morning with your unfailing love, that we may sing for joy and be glad all our days. Make us glad for as many days as you have afflicted us, for as many years as we have seen trouble. May your deeds be shown to your servants, your splendor to their children. May the favor of the Lord our God rest on us. Establish the work of our hands for us. Yes, establish the work of our hands. He's using totally different language in the second half of this psalm. Words like compassion and satisfy us in the morning with your love, your unfailing love, that we can sing for joy and be glad all our days, that we want to show your deeds to our children, and we want your favor to rest on us and strengthen or establish our hands for the work you've called us to. Man, it's a totally different tone, and the secret is that verse 12 there. So this leads me to the purpose of this episode, get a life, a good one. I don't know about you, but I want to have the days of my life filled with God's compassion. I want to be satisfied every morning with God's unfailing love. I want to be able to sing with joy in my heart, down in my heart. Where? Down in my heart. I want to be glad during my days. And I want my years to be filled with joy. I want God's deeds and splendor to fill my life so that I can pass that on to the next generation. And I definitely want God's favor to rest on me. I want God to establish the work of my hands so that I can accomplish the good work that He's prepared for me to do. Now, that sounds like a good life. A life full of joy, gladness, favor, purpose, good work, and love. But here's the $1 million question. How do we get that? The secret is applying verse 12 to your life. You and I need to be taught how to number our days right so that we can gain a heart of wisdom, wisdom for living well. I'm going to take a little bit of a creative license with this verse. Teach us to number our days so that we may gain, the passage says, a heart of wisdom. But let me just draw a blank here. Teach us to number our days so that we may gain blank. You fill in the blank. What area of life do you desire God to bring his kingdom and his flourishing into? For instance, Teach us to number our days so we may gain great friendships, a happy marriage, a love for God and his kingdom. Teach us to number our days so we may gain a healthy body, a thriving business, children, obedient children, a welcoming and happy home. But it takes intentionality and wisdom in order for you to cultivate what God considers to be a good life and to experience God's goodness in all areas of life. Why is numbering your days important? You know, a good life is made up of a bunch of good years, more good years than bad years. So if I had a good life, it would mean that I had more good years than bad years. A good year is made up of what? A bunch of months, more good months than bad months. A good month is made up of a bunch of good days, more good days than bad days. All right, you see where this is headed. A good week is made up of a bunch of good days. Moses was focused on numbering, paying attention to, being intentional and purposeful with his day. I don't believe Moses was numbering his days as in day number 492. No, he was being intentional and purposeful with his days. So, principle number one, in order to live a good life, you have to learn how to live a good day. Some of the most common questions that you ask a loved one when they get home from school or work is, how was your day? Did you have a good day? And how do you typically answer that question? Yeah, it was fine. Yeah, it was pretty good. Yeah, I had a great day. Yeah, it was productive. Maybe occasionally you'll be driving somewhere with the windows down, the music up, and it's one of those feel good moods, and you think to yourself, oh man, today is a good a day. However, not many of us have actually sat down and intentionally made a list of everything that we believe makes a day good. And because of that, we only say that we've had a good day when we feel good in that moment, instead of reflecting on our actual life and work during the day to conclude that it was, in fact, a good day. So let me ask you, what are the things that you could do every day to make your day a good one? Our days are naturally split into three parts: morning, afternoon, and evening. And I would like to ask you to be reflective of this question. How can you be intentional to insert good things into each part of your day? For the morning, you've got 5 a.m. to 12 noon. A good a good day starts by having a good morning, I would hope. So, what are three consistent things that would make for a good morning? Write them down. Open up your notes app if you're not driving and write down what are three things that you could do every morning that would cause you to say, I had a good morning. Now let's move to the afternoon, 12 to let's say 5. How are your energy levels? Are you using your breaks well? Did you Were you productive and efficient? What three consistent things would make for a good afternoon? Think about the hours between noon and 5. What are three things that you could do every day that would make you say, I had a really good afternoon? And finally, your evening. Let's say it starts at 5 o'clock and goes to 11 p.m. Are you connecting with the people you love? Are you making space for reflection or learning, connection? Are you resting well? Are you fully present? Or is your brain still at work while your body's at home? And again, let me ask you, what are three consistent things that you could do that would make a good evening? Here are just some ideas that I wrote down. Take a walk, read a chapter from a book, stretch, hydrate, get to the gym, do some meditation or scripture reading or journaling, prayer. So, principle number one is to have a good life, you have to learn how to have a good day. Principle number two is control the controllables. You know, there's obviously things that make a day good, that you don't have control over, like the weather, your favorite sports team winning a game. You really can't control how other people think or act. Those are things that are outside of your control, and the weather sometimes makes us have a good day. Your team winning makes us have a good day. You're not in control of any of that. But what are you in control over? Here's a few things just to give you an idea. What you read or don't read, how you spend your time before work, how you spend your time after work. You can control your attitude during work, your language during work, your emotions. Although sometimes this seems out of our control on occasion, but you are in control of your emotions. You're in control of your response, your responses towards people, towards circumstances. You are in control of your days off work. You're in control of your free time, outside of certain family obligations. You're in control of how you use social media, the amount of entertainment you choose to indulge. You're in control of how your furniture is arranged. Seriously, this might even matter for your health and sanity. Whether you wear earbuds in public or not, you're in control of a whole lot. And to fulfill your calling, to accomplish the work that God has prepared in advance for you to do, you and I both have to learn how to become a good steward of all that God has placed in our care and under your control. The parable of the talents found in Matthew 25 teaches us that the master requires effort and stewardship to be applied to the things that he's entrusted us. Notice in that parable that the servant who earned five more talents and the one who earned two more talents were both celebrated and rewarded by the master. They earned different amounts, they got different results, but they both exercised effort and stewardship. The wicked and lazy servant, what did he do? He dug a hole in the ground and buried the master's resources. Let me just share with you some things that God has given everyone control over. Effort, outlook, or your perspective, how you choose to see things, your emotions, your beliefs. You are in complete control of what you believe or don't believe. And you can actually lie to yourself. Well, I don't recommend it, but you have control of what you believe. Response to anyone in every situation. You're in control of what you ask for. And you may not be getting something, and you might be upset about it, but have you asked for it? Language. You're in control of your words and your tone, and you're in control of whether you encourage someone or discourage someone. You're in control of your expectations. Are they high? Are they low? You're in control of your actions towards others, your kindness, whether you are seeking peace, whether you are patient, gentle. We got the fruit of the Spirit rolling in here. You're in control of your body. God, I believe it's 1 Corinthians 10:31. Whether you eat or drink or whatever you do with your body, do to the glory of God. God has given you stewardship and control over your body. Your free time, your free time outside of work and family obligations. How are you using your free time? Some of us have more of that than others, but still, you have it. What you read, what you write, what you pray or choose not to pray, you're in control of giving thanks or complaining. You're in control of whether you choose to forgive someone. You're in control of love and hate. Something I like to talk about on this episode, on this podcast, when I interview people, I like to ask them the question, how do you lead yourself first? And how do you lead your tribe or your team? Leadership begins with leading yourself first. Leadership begins by you being more intentional about controlling the controllables, about stewarding and growing the things in your life that you have 100% control over. Leadership then moves into the area of influence, and you begin to exercise certain amounts of influence over other people and the areas of life that you do not have 100% control over. Besides the list that I mentioned, if you live in the United States, you probably have other areas of life that you have a lot of control over. Just some more examples that I wrote down over here. I'm looking at my notes. Do you control what time you go to bed every night? Do you control what time you wake up every morning? Do you control when you start and stop work? Do you control when you schedule vacation days? All that to say is taking ownership of your life starts by taking ownership of everything that God has put you in charge of every single day. And so, figuring out what makes a good day by God's grace, you will be able to live a good life. That's what I want for myself, and that's also what I want for you. Again, if you'd like to download a PDF resource on this, I'll have the link in the show notes that goes to cornerstoneleadership.org. And that's just a really easy way and affordable way that you can support me in doing this podcast. That helps me pay for the website and the hosting to do this, and also it'll be a blessing for you, I believe, and hopefully I keep putting out good content where you can download the PDF resources that I talk about on these episodes. Thank you so much for listening. I'm so encouraged by all the feedback I'm getting from people who have listened to the show so far. And if you have a recommendation for a passage of scripture you want me to unpack, or maybe you have ideas about leadership or questions about purpose, put them in the comments or shoot me an email, garrett@cornerstoneleadership.org. I hope this episode was encouraging for you. And if you know someone who would benefit from it, please share. And let's start paying attention to our individual days so that we can have a good week and a good month and a good year. And eventually we can have a good life.